Hello, Facebook and YouTube. Everybody, welcome. Dr. Tom here. We're talking about the science section today. Welcome Instagram over here, Facebook over here. I'm going to be trying to keep eye contact with everybody. So at the moment, we're running our 2-week free workshop. And at the moment, we're on the science section. Now, the workshop covers all the sections, and if you're not part of it, go to the link above and below. It's going to help you to get started or go to the next level with your preparation. Completely free, but it's only up for another week, so make sure you get there and you watch it. But today I want to talk about section 3, the big one, right? The big one, the one that people worry about, the hardest. It's the longest. It's worth twice as much as the other sections. And there are a lot of problems that people have with it. Most people really worry about this section of the GAMSAT. Even the science students, right? You might not be a science student and be wondering, hoping, wishing that you had done a science degree. But to tell you the truth, even the science students freak out about this section because it's not like a uni science exam. It's not like what they're used to. And a whole bunch of science students mess it up every year. And most science students know people who have done that. So they're kind of worried. And the reason why this happens, like I was just saying, it's not the same. They're not testing you on the same things in the GAMSAT as they are at uni. If they were, all the science students would do just fine here, but they're not. So you've got all these science students who have spent like 1, 2, 3, maybe even 4 more years studying the topics, the physics, the chemistry, the biology, and they know it, but they mess it up. And there is a trap that a lot of them fall into, and it's one of the reasons why they struggle. And the topic, I'm just gonna need my eye here. Sorry, guys. The topic of today's discussion is how to be ready for any science section question. And the problem that most people have is that they're not ready for every question. They get sideswiped, or they get surprised and shocked by the questions that come up. And you've probably heard this already. People come out of the GAMSAT. It happened this year. It happened last year. People come out of it going, oh my God, the GAMSAT's changed. It's not what I expected it to be. And they're thrown by the questions. They're thrown by the stimulus material, the topics that come up, the difficulty of it, whatever. They get thrown by the whole thing. Now, just on a side note, in terms of the difficulty, people often say that the ACER questions are not a very good reflection of the difficulty on the day. The practice ACER questions, they say it's not a good reflection of the difficulty of the actual exam. The problem with that is, here's the thing: the ACER questions are done by ACER. They make the exam, so they're not going to make it easier or more difficult. They're going to make it as evenly, level as the actual exam. The reason why people feel that it's more difficult on the day is because, when you're at home and you're going through the paper, it's pretty relaxing. It doesn't really matter. You're at home. You're comfortable. You're going through it. You can go through the answers later on. It's okay. You're pretty chilled out. On the day, it's very different because it matters and it counts, and you're freaking out and you're worried and you're like, oh my God, I need to get this thing right. And there's thousands of people in the room with you and they're all scribbling away. And you're like, oh my God, I'm behind. And so you're freaking out. It's more difficult. And I think that plays the biggest part when people are like, oh my God, it was more difficult than I thought. Well, that and something else I'm going to talk to you about. But in terms of the difficulty, that's why a lot of people say that the actual exam is more difficult than the sample questions. They're not. And in fact, one of my favorite ACER practice papers, I recommend you have them all. Okay, even though part of our boot camp, we give our students tons of practice papers and practice questions, which people will say are even more difficult than the ACER ones, which is good. That's what we aim for. Nonetheless, despite we give our bootcamp members all these practice questions, I still recommend people have the ACER ones, because sometimes they copy them straight out of the booklets into the actual exam. They copy them, but more so, they're the people that make the exam, and so you need to have them have done them so that you know what the questions are like. So welcome, Sean. Thanks for your support, and we've got G Sing HX199, welcome on Instagram. And we've got a number of people joining us on Facebook too. Awesome. So I got off track. I got distracted by all the Instagram people come along. So the papers, I recommend that people have the ACER ones as well. Right. Now, one of my favorite ones is the latest one, the pink one, because it really shows you, it really what I'm about to talk to you about, it really gives a great example of how, you don't even have to read all the stimulus material to get the answer. In section 1 and section 3, and it's really well shown. That's really well shown in the pink paper. If you haven't got it, get your hands on the latest ASA practice paper, pink one, and do that, because as you see what we talk about now, on the actual that paper, as you read through it and the explanations of the answers, you'll see that you don't even have to go through all the stimulus material to get it. And here's what I want to talk to you about today, is how to be ready for anything they throw at you. Because like I'm just saying now, you don't even have to read all the stimulus material to get it done right. But what you do need is an ability to be ready for what they throw at you. And here's what they're going to throw at you. And this is guaranteed. You can write this down. That guaranteed this is going to happen on the day of the exam. And here's the thing, the only one thing you can expect to happen on the day, and it's going to happen no matter what. The only thing you can expect to come up on the science section, and the only thing you need to be ready for, the only thing you can expect to come up is the unexpected. Okay? And it's funny when you say it like that, but it's very true. There's no way you can you know what's going to come up. What types of physics, chemistry, or biology questions, or something completely different. If you've done the GAMSAT before, you'll know what I'm talking about. And if you haven't done it, have a look at the papers. There'll be all sorts of random things that are there. Things about dinosaurs and the lung capacity of a frog. Random stuff like that you could never have studied for. And there's no way that a whole bunch of science knowledge is going to get you ready for that. You're not going to find it in the textbook. Here's what I tell all my bootcamp members, that no matter how much science knowledge you have, no matter how much science knowledge, no matter how many textbooks you've memorized, no matter how many honors degrees and PhDs you have, literally people with PhDs come to me and they're struggling with this stuff. No matter how much of that knowledge you have, there are still going to be questions in there on topics that you've never seen before. And you have no idea what they're about. And other ones will be completely different to what you've expected. There'll be like topics that you're like, I kind of know this topic, but this is completely different. It's presented in such a strange and weird way that I don't know what the hell is going on here. And memorizing stuff isn't going to help you with that. Doing a bunch of practice questions and just trying to pump through practice questions as much as possible isn't going to help either. Because practice questions are there to test you. They're there to test your abilities. They're not there to develop them. And people think they're just pumping through a bunch of practice questions, they'll somehow magically develop the skills to do well on this exam, which is kind of like a fingers crossed approach. Hopefully something works out, which, I mean, I get why people do that, and I've done that before as well, and I feel you, and I know that people are like, I just don't know what else to do, so I'm just going to do a bunch of practice questions. I've heard that helps. The trouble with that, like I'm saying, is that you're just testing yourself. It's like my Olympic sprinter analogy, right? When someone wants to go to the Olympics, they want to become a sprinter. The first thing they would do is they would get the book by the world running expert on all the different techniques and skills and strategies they need to learn to run really fast. And then they go to training, and they spend all of their time in training developing those skills, doing the drills and the exercises and the different processes to get really good at running, because that's where they become fast runners, right there, in training, doing the drills and the exercises. And then occasionally they go to a local competition to assess their progress. And I hit my mic. And they'll run that race, and their coach will give them feedback. He'll go, you know what, you need to raise your knees more. And at that point, I've got a question for you. Do they go to the straight to the next local competition, or do they go back to training? Right? They go back to training, and they work on that skill of raising their knees more, and other skills and other techniques and other drills and other strategies, so that they keep getting better and faster and stronger and keep improving until they go to the next local competition to again assess the progress that they've been making, and they keep repeating that process until they get to the Olympics. So do you see how that relates to GAMSAT preparation? Right? Because my question to you is, where do the practice questions fit in? Because a lot of people get this wrong, and they say, the training time, that's where I'll do the questions, I'll do the practice on the questions. In fact, that's not where you do it. That's one of the big problems people have. Because here's how this analogy works, okay? Someone wants to go to the Olympics. The first thing they will do is they read the book by the world running expert. That's like you learning what types of skills and strategies and techniques you actually need to get really good at to do well on this exam. And then the training time, that's like your GAMSAT study time. And it's got nothing to do with practice questions, okay? Nothing to do with practice questions, because the practice questions are the local competitions. The practice tests and practice questions are the local competitions where you assess your progress, because you can't do well on them until you've developed the skills to do so. Just like that runner. They're not going to do well at the local competitions until they've done the training. Because when people just say, I'm going to do a bunch of practice questions and hopefully that'll give me the skills I need, here's how that would work out for them. You know, that's as if they were to say, that's as if that sprinter were to say, I want to go to the Olympics. And they skip the book, they skip the training, and they just do one local competition after another, one race after another. And you can imagine how badly that would go, right? They would they would go straight into that race. They haven't done any training, so they'd pull a bunch of muscles, feel really terrible, go really slow, go, oh my God, that was really slow, really bad. I feel really bad about myself. Can I actually do this? All these doubts going through their head, but they're like, I need to push on. I need to do the next race. I'm going to jump straight to the next practice because they're just doing practice questions. So they jump straight to the next race, and they're like, oh, I'll breathe more this time. Oh, I hit the computer this time. I'm getting excited about this topic. And they jump straight to the next race, and they're running. They're trying to run, but they're completely, tired and feeling like crap from the last race, and they're still going really slow, and they're really having all these doubts, and they finish at the thing, and they're really slow, and they're not getting anywhere. But then they're like, I need to push on. I need to do something. And so they jump straight to the next set of questions or the next competition. And then they just jump into that, and it's the same thing over and over, right? And that's what it's like when people are just doing practice questions. Now, is this sounding familiar to some people? Now, if you've done this, is this sounding familiar to you? Because that's what it's like. That sprinter isn't going to do very well until they've done the training. And just in the same way, you're not going to do well on the science practice questions until you've developed the skills to do well on them. And here's the thing. Those skills come down to your ability to be able to pull apart, understand, and work with whatever Section 3 stimulus material they give you. So what's the key to doing that? Well, there's a particular skill that you need, okay? There's a term. Now, if you know the term I'm talking about, type it in, because it gets thrown around a lot, but people don't know what it means. But I want to explain it a bit more because this is super important. This is what you need to actually be able to be ready for any science section question they give you, to be able to be ready for the unexpected, to be able to pull it apart. And later this week, I'm going to give you some case studies of people who have done this and exactly how it works. In fact, we go through that in our workshop. In the workshop that's running at the moment, in the third lesson at the moment, we're going through the science section. But in the fourth one, I go into even more detail about the skills you need, the different techniques and strategies, and how to actually develop them in a practical way moving forward. So I go into that in the fourth lesson. So if you want to know how to do that, now, if you want to know more about in more detail about what I'm talking about here, go to register for the workshop. It's free. It's 4 parts. We're about halfway through now. It goes for about another week, and it goes into huge depth on how to prepare for this thing, what to expect, how to do it differently to everybody else so that you get a great score. It's free. Go to the link. It's above or below, or on Instagram. It's in our bio. On Facebook or YouTube, it's around this video somewhere. Register for that, and we'll see you there. But here's how it goes for most people when it comes to Section 3. There's a trap that a lot of people fall into, and this is super important. I'd like to highlight it because understanding this and getting it right, and taking the lesson out of what I'm about to tell you, will allow you to get ready for anything they throw at you in the science section. So here's how this trap goes. And I call it the science student trap, but it also applies to non-science students because they end up having the same experience. And the way this trap goes is that to do well at uni, okay, to do well at uni, you look at the syllabus, the topics that come up, and then you go to your lectures, you make your notes, you study the notes, the topics that are there, and you go to the textbooks, you learn the topics, you get to know them, you do a bunch of practice questions to apply what you've learned, and then you get into your exam and you show them what you've learned, and you do well, right? That's the usual recipe. And then people see Section 3 of the GAMSAT, and they're like, well, this is kind of the same. It's got science, physics, and chemistry, and they use that same approach, and the trap has been sprung. And so what they do is they revise their lecture notes, or they go to the summer lectures, they make the notes, they learn the topics, they go to the textbooks, learn the topics there, do a bunch of practice questions to apply what they've learned, and then they get into the GAMSAT and they're shocked by what they see. Because the questions are so abstract. Half the things you studied aren't even in there. There's all these random topics you could never have prepared for. And the things that you have seen before are presented in such an unusual way that people are completely thrown, and they come to me and they say, Dr. Tom, it's ironic, I'm a science student, or it's the section I spent the most time on, but it's my worst one. And this happens because they weren't ready for anything they could throw at you. They didn't develop the right skills that are actually being tested on here, because they're not testing you in the GAMSAT on the same things that they are at uni. They're testing a completely different thing. So they're not testing you on your knowledge of the topics. They're not testing you on applied knowledge. They're not testing on how much practice you did. They're testing something else. And it's the key to being ready for anything they throw at you. So do you know what that is? If you know what that is, if you think you know what that is, type that in. What do you think they're actually testing you on here? So I'll give you a clue. In fact, they give it away in the title of the section, because it's not called the science section. Do you know what it's called? It's called reasoning in the biological and physical sciences. So the key word there is reasoning, right? Reasoning. That's what they're testing you on here. Reasoning. And it's not your knowledge of the stuff, because if it was, then all the science students would do just fine. But every year, science students are failing this section or getting in the low 50s, and they're coming to me and saying, Dr. Tom, it's ironic. I don't know what's going on. And I say, it's this. This is the thing. It's the reasoning skills, right? And so the big question then becomes, if that's what it is, if that's what everyone's missing, if that's what they're testing you on, what is that and how do you do it? And now, if you don't know what that is, if you're sitting here going applied knowledge or logical thinking or practice, then you really need to go to the workshop that I'm running at the moment. It's free. I'll give you examples of what reasoning skills are. Because if you don't know this set of skills and techniques and strategies, you're not going to be ready for anything they throw at you, and you're going to struggle. Yeah, you might get through. Hopefully you do. If you don't, fingers crossed, every single person who's watching this gets through. But I know that they won't. But I want to make sure that you do. So go to the workshop and find out a bit more of what that is, because that's the key here. Those reasoning skills, those techniques, those strategies to be able to pull it apart, understand and work with whatever they give you is going to be the key to being ready for anything they throw at you. Because imagine that. Imagine you stepping into section 3 after having a great lunch, having a break, and going, you know what? I'm glad that I'm doing this, because I'm about to become a doctor. Because of this, I'm getting one step closer to getting there, and this is going to be a lot of fun. I look forward to the challenge. Right? That is a different way to look at this section. And wouldn't that be a great way to do this? Right? And that's what we show our boot campers how to do. What these skills are, exactly what to do to develop them. And if you want to get started on how you can do it, go to the workshop, completely free, and you can find out a bit more. But I hope that's been helpful. I hope that's provided a bit of clarity, or a lot of clarity, if you've done the GAMSAT before, why you didn't do as well as you hoped. Or if you're doing it for the first time, how to do it correctly. So all the best. If you like what we talked about, hit the like button, share it with your friends. Now, I'm doing these lives every day during the workshop, so come along. It's going to be happening daily. If you missed it, watch the recordings on YouTube or Facebook, and I'll catch you guys next time.